What's going on? YouTube, listen up, young elder gang. This is Ted Strokes at you with another banger. Please make sure you like, subscribe, and share this video. Fam, I hope this video get at least 100,000 likes in this video. You will find history definitions, scripture information, and best of all, what we Americans have been deprived of from the beginning. The truth, keep in mind. This content used in this video is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. We will give you the total truth as we best understand it today. Be sure to hit that like button, young elder gang. Hit that subscribe button. If you're new to the channel, hit that bell, and don't forget to check back with us every day for new content. Let's be real. When the ships came, they didn't just bring soldiers and sickness. They brought a book, a holy book. That book was used to justify taking your land, your freedom, and even your names. Religion became a weapon. Chains wrapped in scripture, called salvation. This wasn't about saving souls. It was about controlling bodies and minds. Imagine living your life, your own beliefs, your own way of talking to the Creator. Then someone arrives and says everything you know is wrong. They called your gods devils, your ceremonies sinful, your souls in danger. They came with a cross in one hand and a sword in the other, calling them savages who needed saving. But what they really wanted was to break your spirit, to make them forget who they were. For Moors whose birthrights were stolen, they stripped them of their drums, their gods, their languages. For Moorish Native Americans, they outlawed dances, burned sacred objects, and forced children into schools to kill the Indian, save the man. The message: your culture is worthless, your spirit is broken, only our God can fix you. So, when we talk about religion in Moorish native communities, it's complicated. It's about survival. The tool of your oppressor became a source of your strength. How do you sing to the God of the people who chained you? How do you pray in the language of those who tried to erase you? You took what was meant to destroy you and tried to make it your own. But you can't ever forget how it started. It started with a cross, a book, and a chain, forever tangled together. This is a story of pain, but also of resilience. And that's why you have to talk about it. Faith can inspire hope, or justify conquest. In the age of exploration, ships crossed oceans not just with soldiers, but with a cross, claiming new worlds in the name of God. For those already living on these lands, their gods lived in rivers and forests, their histories sung and carved in stone. Then came the invaders, bearing a symbol that promised salvation, but brought subjugation. Colonization is often told with maps and kings, but beneath it was a spiritual war. One God declared true, one way of life deemed superior. This certainty turned explorers into conquerors, prayers into policies. How did faith become a mandate for empire? The answer lies in papal decrees, missionary diaries, and the ruins of temples replaced by churches. It's a Gothic history. The sacred used for the profane, the quest for souls twisted into a quest for land and power. This is the story of how belief became a weapon. The shadow it cast would stretch across continents and centuries. The light of faith, once a guide, became a sword, and the world would never be the same. Before swords, there were words. In Europe, theologians crafted the doctrine of discovery. Any land not Christian was free to be claimed. This doctrine erased millions, declaring non-Christians less than human, their lands forfeit. It gave kings and queens a holy duty, conquest as charity, not aggression. Invaders became saviors, theft became salvation. The narrative repeated in sermons and decrees until it became truth. Some destined to rule, others to be ruled. This religious justification was the foundation of empire. Without it, colonization was naked aggression. With it, a noble cause. The conquerors believed God was on their side. They claimed not just land, but the right to define reality itself. The world was remade in their image, no matter the cost. The cross became a flag of dominion, and faith, a license for conquest. Soldiers brought guns, missionaries brought Bibles. They arrived as healers and teachers, but were the vanguard of cultural invasion. Missionaries learned languages, mapped lands, and sent vital information to colonial powers. Their true mission, conversion, convincing people their beliefs were wrong, their gods false. This was psychological warfare, eroding traditions and introducing shame. Conversion fractured communities, dividing families, and unraveling ancient bonds. The old ways faded, not with violence but with whispers. Missionaries, preaching unity, often sowed disunity. They paved the way for total control, softening resistance from within. The gentle face of faith masked a brutal process. The erosion of worlds began with a prayer, and the cost was the soul of entire cultures. The Bible became a tool of empire. With the groundwork laid, the assault on native spirituality began. This was not persuasion, it was erasure. Sacred objects were destroyed, temples burned, and idols declared demonic. Public spectacles of destruction showed the conquered their gods were powerless. In the Americas, Mayan codices were burned. Forced conversions became law. Practicing old religions became a crime. Sacred sites were desecrated. Churches built atop ruins. The landscape itself was reconsecrated for empire. This was spiritual violence, leaving deep scars. Imagine being forced to kneel before a foreign god as your own are turned to ash. This was an attempt to hollow out a people, to erase identity and replace it with servitude. Faith became a tool of terror, not comfort. The old world was buried, literally and spiritually, and the scars remain. But history is never one-sided. Even under oppression, the human spirit resisted. Outlawed gods were hidden. Rituals survived in secret. Syncretism emerged. Indigenous beliefs blended with the conqueror's religion. Saints became ancient deities, the Virgin Mary, a mother goddess. On the surface, conversion; beneath, survival. Colonial laws tried to erase identity, but stories and songs endured in secret. Even in residential schools, traditions were whispered and passed down. Today, the legacy of religious colonization lingers, but so does resilience. Indigenous communities reclaim languages, ceremonies, and sacred knowledge. The story is not over. The shadow of the cross is long, but the light of older suns endures. The quest for meaning survives, and so does hope. How did they force a new religion on millions? Not just by preaching. First came violence. Convert or face beatings, torture, or worse. Sacred sites destroyed, spiritual leaders killed. They wanted to create a spiritual emptiness only their God could fill. Then came the laws. Your spiritual practices were banned. You could be jailed for honoring your ancestors. For enslaved Moorish people, gathering for worship without white supervision was forbidden. They policed your faith, choking the life out of your traditions. The most sinister tool, the schools. Native children snatched from families, stripped of language, culture, and identity. Kill the Indian, save the man. Christianity drilled in, shame for their own culture instilled. They called your gods demons, twisted your stories, made you fear what once gave you strength. This psychological warfare was devastating. When you're told you're sinful and savage over and over again, you start to believe it. They weren't just converting you, they were trying to erase you. The attack was systematic, relentless, and designed to break the chain of knowledge. Your beliefs were not just outlawed, they were demonized. The goal: total erasure. Trauma like this doesn't just fade, it gets passed down. We're talking about wounds in the soul, scars in the DNA. PTSD isn't just for soldiers, it's for children of boarding schools, descendants of the enslaved. The fear, the loss, the violence, it all leaves a mark. This is intergenerational trauma. Your grandmother's terror becomes your mother's anxiety, becomes your own. It shows up in our health, our trust, our sense of belonging. It's not a personal failing, it's the ghost of history. Being told your people are worthless, your skin a curse, your traditions evil, this breeds shame and self-hatred. The wound of colonization is not just about stolen land, but stolen self-worth. Healing means unlearning generations of shame, reclaiming pride. This trauma shapes how you parent, love, and see the world. It can lead to cycles of addiction and violence, numbing a pain with no name. You walk with open wounds, often not knowing their source. That's why you must name the trauma, which is religion. Your struggles are centuries old, not just your own. Only by understanding this can you begin to heal. Even if you leave the church doesn't always leave you. I call this religious residue, the habits, guilt, and ways of thinking that stick long after belief fades. It's the preacher's voice in your head, the guilt for sleeping in on Sunday, the fear of hell that lingers. It shapes our language, our sense of right and wrong. For many, Christianity was the only moral framework given. Leaving it can feel like losing your conscience, your community. The fear of damnation doesn't just vanish, it seeps into your subconscious. Even if you don't believe, the emotional fear remains. People who leave often feel anxiety, nightmares, panic. The residue is psychological control that lasts a lifetime. And it's not just fear, it's about community. The church was the center of social life, support, and family. Leaving risks losing all that. The residue is in your head, your relationships, your community. It makes a clean break almost impossible. When your original identity is destroyed, you build a new one from what's left. For many, Christianity was all that remained, so they reshaped it. The story of Moses became a symbol of hope. The so-called Black Church became a center for community, leadership, and resistance. They made the pale man's God listen to your sorrow and dreams of freedom. You blended old and new, ancient rhythms in preaching, hidden traditions in plain sight. Christianity became a faith that looked like the colonizers but held your own spirit deep inside. But this came at a cost. The so-called Black Church sometimes policed your connection to Moorish roots. Anything too Moorish was shunned, locking the door to your past. You became a people with a borrowed God, still searching for missing pieces of yourselves. Your new identity was both strength and loss. The attack on your beliefs was total, not just introducing a new God, but annihilating the old ones. Sacred objects burned, ceremonies outlawed, spiritual leaders silenced. The goal, cultural amnesia, a spiritual void. Imagine your entire understanding of the universe declared illegal. For many, converting to Christianity was desperation, not faith. A borrowed faith can never fully replace a native one. Today, the ghost of what you lost still haunts us. A longing for a spiritual connection we can't define. The names of our gods, the details of our ceremonies. So much was lost. Reviving these traditions is like piecing together a shattered mirror. Generations were taught to fear their own heritage. Internalized shame is a huge barrier to revival. The colonizers' work continues long after they're gone. The erasure was not just physical, but psychological. The spread of Christianity was never just about faith, it was about power and money. The church, government, and economy worked together to oppress Moorish native people. Laws took your land and legalized slavery. The church justified it as God's will. The economy profited. The doctrine of discovery gave Christian explorers the right to claim any land not inhabited by Christians. This doctrine was cited by the Supreme Court to deny native land rights. For enslaved Moorish people, the Bible demanded obedience. Slaves, obey your earthly masters. Preachers were paid to encourage submission, making you accept your own bondage. Religion was the grease for the slave economy. To have rights, you had to be part of the dominant Christian culture. Your spiritual systems had no legal standing. The church became central because it was one of the few paths to any social standing. You never just accepted oppression, you resisted. When your old ways were banned, you hid them, blending traditions in secret. Spirituals were Christian hymns on the surface, but coded messages for escape and hope underneath. Songs like Wade in the Water and Follow the Drinking Gourd were maps to freedom. The independent so-called Black Church was a declaration of spiritual independence. You worshipped in your own way, in your own space, fueling abolition and civil rights. Moorish native people held secret ceremonies, passed down stories, and blended Christian figures with their own spirits. Every hidden prayer, every coded song, every secret ceremony was a victory. It was resistance, survival, and hope. You found freedom, even in chains. Your spirit refused to be broken. The human spirit endures, even in the Master's house. That's your legacy. Where do you go from here? The pain is real, but so is the healing. The first step is naming the pain, being honest about what was done to you. You can't heal what you don't acknowledge. For some, healing means reclaiming stolen traditions, reviving languages, ceremonies, and ancestral knowledge. For others, it means exploring Moorish spiritual systems, learning the names of forgotten gods. This isn't about rejecting God, but finding a vision of the divine not tied to oppression. Some decolonize their faith, stripping Christianity of colonial baggage, reading the Bible through the eyes of the oppressed. They build churches that celebrate Moorish native identity, working to dismantle old systems. There's no one right way to heal. For some, it's a return to the old ways. For others, it's transforming the new. The journey itself matters, reclaiming your right to define your own spirituality. It's about cleaning out the wounds and letting them close. For the first time in centuries, you're drawing your own map. You are finding your way back to yourselves. That is the most sacred journey of all, and it's only just beginning.